Okay, you go ahead. No,
There we go.
yep. Okay.
Take
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the meeting. Hi, Melissa. And Megan, I don't think we've seen you on here before.
Yeah. Hi, Rod. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Tripty. My name's Megan. I live in Sunnyside. I saw the agenda today and I just wanted to come listen in.
Well,
thank
welcome
you. I
in.
think,
it's great to see new faces.
We probably have met. Maybe it was under the Monkey Barrel G&A, right?
That's right. Okay. Yeah, and just neighborhood events and stuff. So good to talk to you, and thank you all.
Well, thank you for joining. What on the agenda got your attention?
Well, I couldn't make it last time to hear about the plans for the Remington building, the old Rocky Mountain Prep. So I wanted to hear about that. And then also I saw there was another RNA coming up and just wanted to check in to see if that was maybe one of the businesses across the street from my house. So just wanted to be involved and listen in, and thank you all. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Awesome. Where are you at in the neighborhood?
44th and Umatilla, right at the the southwest corner of 44th and Umatilla. Okay. Yeah, the green and purple house. Ghosts in the trees these days.
Don't forget to enter our Halloween contest.
I'll have to. I go down 44th, but I turn it. Well, wait, you're on this side of it. Yeah, I go right by you. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's us. All right.
Cool.
Well, and we're
welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, Rod, you can pull up the agenda if you want. We can go.
Yeah, let me share screen. Yeah, it looks like I got full capabilities, Troopty.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it's working. And I was able to even log in before you logged in. So, I mean, I think we're underneath the same user, but you're able to rename, so it's fine.
Well, no, your name came. Did you have to change your name?
Yeah, I had to change my name.
Okay. I did the same thing.
I think I haven't used Zoom. I only really use Zoom for this, so it works. Well, welcome everybody. And Melissa, I need to talk to you a little bit. We can do it on here too. I'll give you a little about the Phillips 66 place.
The hole in the ground. Yeah, for sure.
What's that?
The hole in the ground. Yeah, it's.
Oh yeah,
I
haven't even talked to you, Troopty, about it. So
yeah, we should probably just talk about it here. I do think it's relatively important, and we do. I don't know if there's anybody's followed up with anybody about.
Let me go through the rest of the stuff, and then don't you think? And then that conversation could go.
Yeah, absolutely,
all over. And then Melissa can just duck out after she does her thing. So.
Oh, I don't know. I got a feeling Melissa's going to need to be on all of the stuff I've got.
Yeah. So welcome to the October Land Use Committee meeting, everyone. And welcome, Megan. A new face is always good to see. We had sort of attendance drop off precipitously sort of as COVID wound down. So we're trying to find ways to bring in new people. So if you have neighbors and stuff that might be interested, feel free to make sure you let them know.
Yes, please.
We'd like to get more involvement going with the group. Let's see. I'm just going to skip down because I don't think we have anything to approve or anything from last meeting. So are there any public comments? I can just skip to item 2. If anybody's got anything new they want to bring up or something they want to talk about in the neighborhood. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is you, Melissa. So you're first up. Do you want to share your screen and I'll just stop sharing?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Hold on one second here. Hopefully, can you see that now?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. So just a few things here. We are so excited that we got the sidewalk program fee finalized. You may have heard already, but the council, took in the recommendations of the working group And the sidewalk fee will now be a flat $150 per year for the majority of customers, with the exception of exceptionally large properties that have over 230 linear feet of frontage. And then they're going to have to pay an additional impact fee for that. But this allows for some financial assistance for those that qualify, as well as some discounts for affordable housing and the like. And then this will be adjusted annually based on both the CPI and CDOT construction index, which they found to be a pretty good balance on ensuring that this grows with time and doesn't stay stagnant and unable to cover cost. So that will start and be biannual billing, no different than your wastewater, for January 2025. So for a lot of Northwest Denver, a lot of interest in the 29th Avenue bike lane and paving project. This has drawn a lot of interest because it will be a dedicated bike lane in majority of the sections. There have been some cutouts for some of the businesses that were concerned about loss of customers, but this does provide a lot of protected biking space and encourage more multimodal use throughout West Highlands, Sloan's Lake, Jefferson Park, and even Highlands. So we're excited about that. The Federal Boulevard Pedestrian Safety Project, which was funded through the bond, is almost done. So all of the mess that people have been driving through for a while has really wrapped up. We're just kind of doing a lot of finishing touches through the end of the month here, and then hopefully that'll be done at that point.
Yeah, man, we got to get Red Top open back up again. I've been jonesing for pizza.
Right? Yeah, that is a terrible closure. So yeah, we're very excited. One, for the improvements, but two, for the reopening of the community there, because that is their business district.
Yeah.
And it was heavily impacted.
Oh yeah. That was one of our favorite spots. And when we talked to the manager person, it was like, oh no, I thought they'd be done by now. They were back open, but we checked their website and they're still closed.
Hey, Melissa,
Yeah.
what is a hawk signal?
A hawk signal. So a hawk signal is a traffic light that is really is for pedestrians only.
It's like
so
the one here at St.
mid-block. Oh, go ahead.
It's like the one here at St. Catherine's, like
Yes.
Yeah. It right at between 42nd and 43rd, there's one that goes across Federal there.
Oh, okay. Yep.
It works great. I mean, because I walk that way a lot, and like the light changes immediately when you push the cross button.
Oh, I like that. Okay, got it. That's like the big part, is that it's responsive, quick.
There's not a cross car traffic. It's only for people. And
got it.
I mean, I suppose if it went off and you hit it again, it would probably wait a little bit. But if nobody has done it for a while, when you hit it goes yellow instantly.
Oh, that's great. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, those are super expensive, so we're super thrilled that that's part
and
of it.
they piss everybody off in a car. You just look at their faces as you're crossing, and the cars have to stop, and they're just like glaring at you.
But it's great. We do need more of those for pedestrian and bike, right? Like this is a good way to kind of prioritize those other modes of transportation. And make it safe, because you're not competing with cross traffic. Because a lot of times, even though you can go, if someone's turning or anything else, you may be at risk. And this is purely for pedestrian and bike. Yeah.
Well, plus rush hour traffic time on Federal, you couldn't get across without it.
Right.
I mean, it's just literally like if the lights don't turn red on either of the two blocks, it's just constant traffic at rush hour.
I think throughout Denver, we just need more, we need behavioral change that puts pedestrians ahead of cars, like they do in Boulder, where, at crosswalks, pedestrians have right of way very often, and it's the cars that have to slow down. I wish we had more of that throughout, the city of Denver, because then that would help really, again, adjust behavior where people are used to it. Like when you don't have enough of those, then people don't know to expect it. And then, then they're not even paying attention that pedestrians have a right of way, unless there's a lighting situation, versus just having more crosswalks that prioritize people, as soon as you pass, the lights start shaking, and people just know that they have to wait. I wish we had more of those throughout Denver. I mean, I'm sure it needs to be in specific areas. I'm not saying Federal is a spot, but I would love to see more of those throughout that starts really making it a priority, not just in these dangerous areas where it's absolutely needed, but more of a priority where pedestrians are just prioritized over cars. I mean, I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah, well, the definition of that would be to make them more streets, which are more multimodal friendly for all forms.
Absolutely.
As
Yeah,
opposed
I
to
agree.
like, I think like Strong Towns calls them stroads,
Yeah.
which are like the worst of all
Roads,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
They try to act like a street, but really it's a road because it prioritizes cars.
Exactly. And that's what we don't need, right? And I think we
Right.
have a lot of those.
Well, and
So
that's
that
one
is what we
reason
have.
why Federal, I don't know if it's still this way, but I know Federal and Colfax are both two of the most highly per mile per capita or whatever it is, most dangerous streets like in the United States for vehicle pedestrian accidents. I know Colfax was up there in like the top 5
Mhm.
per linear mile of car pedestrian accidents.
Yep.
Well, and you'll see some of that start to change, especially because a lot of those accidents are East Colfax, and you do have the East Colfax BRT
Right.
that is
Mhm.
coming.
That's
So
true.
you're going to have that loss of traffic lane on either side, right? So that should benefit
Right.
some of that. Now, the challenge is that it's pushing the traffic into 13th, 14th, 16th, 17th.
Yes.
And
Right.
those streets are going to be pretty significantly impacted, and they already
Yes.
have people
But a
cruising through
crowded,
there.
oh,
Right.
really?
Mhm.
Oh God,
Like,
it's really, really bad. People do some serious like speeds in
Yep.
13th and 14th, and
Yep.
they've
They're
had
one
numerous
ways too,
cars,
right?
yeah, run into buildings, homes.
well, and that's where you see it on Federal too. It's not so much at rush hour time because nobody's going really fast enough to hit anything unless it's a fender bender. But like the big accidents that we've had along here historically have been in those times when there's not a lot of traffic and those cars go, they race down Federal, or they, there was a couple of cars racing and they went into the massage parlor on the corner here at 41st about a week and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was walking. It was like at midnight, and I saw these flashing lights, so I walked up there, and there was a car up and it hit the tree next to the massage parlor. Because I don't know how they actually did it, but yeah, they were jacked up. Anyway, it's when they're
All
going
right.
fast is the worst. So
All
sorry
right.
to
Yep.
interrupt.
Sorry, Melissa. Yep. Thank you.
No, it's all right. All right. So the downtown area plan. So there is another area plan happening, and this is going to be for downtown. Challenge is, a lot of these things already happened by the time I come to you guys. The survey for this closes today. They had their pop-up earlier this month, but they are looking for people to participate. They're trying to make downtown more vibrant, and they're looking for people's input. We have both of these already closed, the active safe street surveys. And these were 2 changes happening in the Berkeley Regis neighborhood and then in the Highland neighborhood. That they were looking for some input on, because although they had previously sought input, they had run into some financial challenges and needed to re-seek input on some financial, more fiscally conservative alternatives. So.
Yeah, we got to get those bike lanes up improved, because Gilbert got his new bike, man, and he's everywhere these days.
Oh,
so
Gilbert
so
does have a
he
new
has
bike.
that.
That's
Man, I
right.
just saw him today and I was like, man, he is powering around with that thing.
Yes.
He is, he is iconic for Sunnyside.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. It's nice that folks raised money and got him a bike.
Yeah.
So that was awesome.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, he should be our biking ambassador. Like, you know what?
He
If we
really
don't have
should
one,
be.
we may need one. He needs to be the bike ambassador because there's no one who bikes as much as he does.
Yeah, because I think they got overwhelmed with donations for that, because Nicole and I pitched in. It was that GoFundMe or whatever. I think he's got enough money for like 10 years of maintenance and upkeep.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, it's like it was way beyond the bike.
Yeah, he went and got a electric bike, I think, from, was it E-Force over on Tennyson?
Yes.
But it's a tricycle, but it's also electric. And they took all the old bells and whistles from his old one with the cards and the spokes and everything, and it's got all that stuff to it.
Megan, do you know who we're talking about?
Sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
I've seen
all right,
Gilbert
yeah, I
around a
mean,
lot. There used to
exactly.
be a gentleman who rode a tall bike, like one of those penny
Mm.
farthing
He's still
cycles.
around.
Do you remember?
With the
I haven't seen
mustache. He's
him
I
got
haven't
that.
in
seen
Yeah, I
it.
haven't
years.
seen him
It's
either.
been it's been a few years since I've seen that guy too.
Because he would go right up 40. He would go up Tejon.
Yeah.
You're right. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm glad to hear Gilbert got a new bike. That's great. The last time I saw him, he was kind of in the middle of the road fixing his last one. So I'm really glad. That's great.
I guess what happened is he actually fell on the two-wheeler and he was getting less able to navigate well in the two-wheeler as his abilities have deteriorated a little bit. So the three-wheeler is much safer. So
that's great.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So anyway,
Really cool.
Yeah, he's definitely a good ambassador for biking.
Exactly.
You're thinking of Paul Breckus.
Oh, that's his name. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's super cool.
He is. He's amazing. He's been around forever too.
Okay, so in full disclosure, like every city has one of those guys, because I grew up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and there was a guy that rode one of those old timey bikes, and he would have like the fedora hat or whatever on and did the whole garb with the wool vest and just dressed down like he was in the 1920s. So every town has
That is so cool.
old big big wheel bike guy.
I've seen him all over. I've seen him as far away as like Harlan, I-70 in Harlan before. He gets around.
And they do not look easy to ride.
No.
No,
they do not. I'm like, wow. All right, cool.
All right. So just asking people to share some feedback on two parks here. Stellar Park, otherwise known as Wolf Park, over there in West Highland. And then they're asking people to register for the 51st and SUNY Park meeting. We're going to be doing some improvements there, and they have some questions on preferred concept plans. So that'll be Thursday, October 24th. For people interested in solar, the city has partnered to do a solar switch program, which is basically a way of kind of combining residents that are interested in solar to do greater buying power, lower prices. They're going to have another cohort of individuals start on November 1st to see what they can get for them. You could qualify for up to $8,000 rebate there. So
that's pretty
kind of
good.
interesting way of going about that.
Okay, there's definitely a bunch of stuff we should probably put into our newsletter and share.
Yeah, did you email me this, Melissa, your PowerPoint?
Yeah. I was just going to say, is this the land use update that is archived, right?
Oh, okay. I can just go get it. I can go grab it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this isn't just the Sunnyside portion, because typically when you cover some of that it used to be that it was by each neighborhood and you would cover that. Is this the beginning of it before you break out into the Sunnyside stuff?
Yes, I always have a general and then a specific.
Okay, perfect. I want to make sure, because I think especially that that co-op, because is it a co-op? Is it still a co-op situation like it used to be?
I'm not sure if it's, I don't know if they consider it a co-op, quite honestly.
Okay, because it seems like
similar concept.
Right, because it used to be like that purchasing power situation was the more people who signed up, the better of a discount you would get. So I can't remember if Solar United Neighbors, I think it's the same folks who've been around for a while. I'm talking like almost pre-pandemic, there were meetings where they were trying to do this as a co-op. I just can't remember if it's the same group of people or this is a different company. And are they local? Is Solar Switch local?
I'm not all that sure, honestly.
Okay.
I would assume so.
Okay.
You can learn more about some of that.
I will. I'll look it up.
I've got it queued up here. So
cool.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So we can copy and paste it.
And then, so we also have the citywide ADU project. So Sunnyside already has ADUs. In fact, the majority of Northwest Denver has ADUs. We have only a small portion that does not, and that would be Inspiration Point, and a little portion of the Regis neighborhood right by Willis Case Golf Course, all that new housing right in there. the homes right next to it that are older. But we look forward to bringing ADUs to those residents and to, you know, people citywide. And this will kind of go for PUDs and well, for many PUDs, former Chapter 59 zoning, and it will override HOAs as well, thanks to some of the laws of the state. So we this is moving along, and it'll be at council for public hearing and vote on November 18th.
I'm assuming it unanimously passed planning board.
Oh yeah, this is not a consent. Everyone is super excited to stop seeing individual ADU zoning. So CPD's excited, council's excited. We are all very excited.
Yeah,
to
I
see
can
the
imagine.
end of individual ADU rezoning.
Yes.
So we just had the last one this week. Councilman Flynn had the last one that we should see before the adoption of this.
Nice.
So everyone's super excited that this will make it so that CPD has more time to handle actual.
Right, exactly.
So, all right. So here is everyone's, what you were referring to. I don't believe there's a heck of a lot in Sunnyside. There is the bus rapid transit.
Yep, the federal.
Asking people to take the survey on that. And I think that's all I have. You know,
Hold on,
what's
let's
not
see.
in,
And
When's the survey due?
you know, it's CDOT, and they are not all that specific on when they're going to close it.
Okay, okay.
So
Because I know they have a, you know, the stakeholder meeting coming up, I think this month. And Rod, I think you're now on there, right? Because you've been going
yeah,
to
and I went to the last meeting.
Okay, great. And are you
and-
planning on going to the next one? Because I
Yeah,
cannot.
I mean, they're all Zoom, so I just hop on and
Okay,
listen.
great. All right. If you're going to go, then at least we'll have somebody
Some of
from
it, I mean,
Sunny.
you know, some of it, I think they're just there checking off their boxes that they've
Correct.
done enough community outreach kind of things, because I don't
Yep.
really think they want to hear too much criticism. The part that I kind of kept my mouth shut. There's, you know, well, so for
Don't do
Megan,
that.
if you haven't been on here, like it's not really going to affect Sunnyside all that much because
Correct.
the area between 20th and 52nd is not getting its own dedicated bus lane. There's just not enough width in this stretch. So all we'll see is some traffic lane sort of stuff change a bit because the right-hand lane will become where the bus is supposed to go fast, but they're not going to preclude cars from it. So we're not going to see a lot of change here. But I was more concerned, and I don't even know how I bring this up because it already seems like it's a done deal. They're just trying to figure out the funding that they're going to get from all the various buckets and how much they're going to get. But the area that went from, I think from like where it crosses Highway 36 all the way up to 120th, which currently doesn't have any bus service. So when they started going through the ridership numbers, it was like 0 at the start of this, which is basically 2028. And it went out to like 2036 or something, these projections. And they were only projecting that they'd have like 200 riders by 2036 in that stretch of that thing. And they're going to be running them at 15-minute intervals, which is essentially 7.5 minutes on each side of the road. And I'm like, that's like one bus per rider, like for $30 million or whatever. I was like, that seems like, I mean, I guess, you know, I'm all for mass transit, but I was like, is that money we want to spend now for 200 people? You could give them all Uber rides for the year for, you know, a fraction of the price. I thought it was like weird, the ridership there. Now, the other riderships are anticipated in other stretches to increase significantly when they get that stuff. But I was kind of shocked at the low riders because I know they always kind of exaggerate them too, you know, like 200 might be high.
Interesting. Probably have to figure out how they modeled that information.
Yeah, exactly.
But you should bring that up when you're at that, because I really think that's kind of the only value of some of these meetings.
I think it was like another $30 million for that little stretch, and it was like, what? You're going to spend $30 million for 200 people over 8 years to ride the bus annually? It was kind of like, and nobody else said anything, so I was like, oh, I'm not going to.
Oh, you should. I mean, that's like I said, it's the only value of showing up at those things, because you can ask like very specific things, and you know, maybe not at this point, but a lot of times, you know, there are things that people will bring up that spur conversations that lead to, you know, them thinking about it or, changing something. So I, definitely, if you are going to participate, definitely bring
Yeah.
up whatever's on your
Alright,
mind.
well,
Cause I do think it's
and I don't know
of
enough about
value.
buses. I know they're like a lost leader,
Right,
kind of at the
right.
beginning anyway, because it's kind of the cart or the horse thing. You got to have the bus to be there before people will start riding it. It's not the other way around. So
Yeah, I wish we had a transportation nerd or a specialist or enthusiast who wanted to, in Sunnyside, who would be our liaison for any of these transportation things. Because to your point, none of us are knowledgeable enough on these, so other than showing up to kind of hear what they're doing or kind of understand, maybe provide some
right.
input.
Yeah, because I don't know enough of the metrics, because
Yeah, I wish we had
the
someone.
44th that turns and goes down Tejon, I try to ride that as much as I can. And sometimes I just grab a scooter because it's always running late and it's not quick enough. So I understand they're trying, I hope they increase the frequency of that one. But even then, there's only like 1 or 2 people on that bus every time I look at it. So we got to figure out how to get more people on those things and using them.
Cool.
So anyway.
All right. So
all
this
right.
is another one. I got to find out the date on this to see if it'll be before or after our newsletter. But this would be a good one to make sure people are aware of to send out.
Okay, well,
All right,
we
cool.
can talk about that afterwards. So,
Oh, I mean, I'll just go to it and find the information and make sure our marketing folks get it and put it out there, or I put it out there. But thank you. There's a bunch of stuff in here to share, is my point.
Perfect. And then, things that's not in there is, of course, Remington that came out after this. Obviously not our project. We were not informed, so that's not in there. And then, although it very, very minorly impacts Sunnyside, is the text amendment bundle and the discussion over carriage lots. But I know that's on your agenda, so we can tackle that then.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, definitely going to need you to catch us up on kind of where we are and, the couple of people I think that are impacted in our neighborhood. And actually, yeah, we'll talk about that
there's
there.
2 carriage lots, I think, in Sunnyside,
Yes.
right?
But I think, the thing to think about is on those 2 carriage lots, and let's go to it when we get to it.
Okay. Well,
look at your team hair as walls. Okay, you got the shirt.
yeah, maybe I should be wearing this on here. Am I not supposed to be political? I don't know.
No. It's all good here.
Yeah.
All right, what's up next on the agenda?
So that's Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. The new RNO notifications.
Okay.
You had on the agenda there, and I'll switch over to sharing here.
Okay. And I know this is something that Megan is here for. So the 2 that are the excise, so I'm just going to talk about the 2 that I'm aware of. If there's any others, that I can't think of right now, but the 2 I'm kind of acting on. One is Walshanky Ciders is getting a tavern license because they do, entertainment, they do, bingo and things like that. And folks who are aware of the rules, said, hey, you don't have a cabaret license, right? And so now they're getting one so that they're legit. And and I'm having them do a GNA that kind of has some of the same stuff: hours of operation, closing of doors, outdoor speakers, lights, kind of the generic stuff that we have on all of them. Where Walshanky is right now, it's kind of unique because there isn't a lot of stuff around them. We only have Zia, and then we have Homes as well. But ahead of them getting a license, making sure they're all on agreement, they don't have any problem signing it. It's going to be on their face of their license. It's already been submitted. So that's that. And the second one, and Megan, it's not going to be across the street from you. It is next. It is. Well, I should have pulled up the street. It is 44th and is it? Not Decatur. It's the old senior assistance center that is the glass front, and Vetiver Studio is going on one side. On the other side is
it's between Decatur and Elliott.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So there's a new bar tavern concept coming in, and they're going to have an outside patio. They've applied for a tavern license and a cabaret license. They have their own parking.
And just for clarity, I went by and I looked at the sign they've got out front. It's around the side on the extra wide sidewalk that's actually on Elliott, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's in the front and the side, because the front has a wide.
The map
I
they
think,
had out there just kind of showed a little
oh, is
rectangle on
it?
the side. It didn't
Okay, I
show
could
it.
be. All right, maybe I'm wrong.
But
I
maybe
thought it
it's
was around the
changed.
front.
Maybe it's
I,
changed, but
yeah,
it is on the side is what, at least it's on the side is the
right.
minimum.
It's definitely on the side.
Yeah.
So they are looking at the information now. They're a much bigger company. They're out of California. They have, hotels and like Denny's and 7-Elevens, and like they're a company of like 1,700 employees. So they're not a mom and pop shop in that respect. I guess they're moving into this market a little bit. They have a hotel, Fairfield Inn or something in Littleton, and they're opening this elevated bar. They have experience in LA on these types of concepts. It's a very small thing. It's not going to have a kitchen.
Yeah, it's
They
not
are
very big because they've got the framing kind of started inside.
right. So, I mean, they're going to have food, and that's why they're applying for a tavern license and not a hotel restaurant, right? A hotel restaurant license would mean a certain percentage of their income comes in from food. And if it doesn't, then, so they're applying for a tavern and a cabaret. The cabaret is not going to be anyone, they're not having rock bands, they're just thinking like a small indoor a cappella, acoustic type of thing if and when they do it. But what they're doing is just making sure they apply for the license and all the licenses that they may need, instead of doing like what Walshanky did, right? They were doing stuff and then somebody says, hey, you're not allowed to do it. They're just doing it all together now. So they too are going to be signing into the GNA, same kind of provisions, lights, noise, trash, hours of operation. They have parking, so that's a good thing over there. They have their own parking, and they're gonna adapt. Is kind of where they are. They may be just open in the evenings. Maybe only Saturday, Sunday. Are they open a little bit earlier? It just sounded like this is what I said to them. I said, hey, I hope you don't rely on foot traffic, because there isn't a lot. And, mostly I was trying to figure out like where they may be fiscally, because a lot of concepts come and go because they think they're going to succeed and then they don't. And these folks, kind of like their hotels are their bread and butter. These are other concepts that they bring in. They like to go into underinvested areas and put concepts like this. It should be like an elevated cocktail bar theme. The food is going to
if we
be
get more of those along there, the foot traffic will continue to improve.
absolutely. But I want to make sure like they weren't going to be like a launch that opened in Zia, and I swear to God, in 6 months they closed up shop, and it's like how much money did you have ready to pursue towards this concept if you couldn't last 6 months? So they seem pretty sharp and pretty knowledgeable. They've got full-on teams of people, and also one of the partners in the concept is also the owner of the building, part owner of the building, right? So they actually have someone local. The gentleman I talked to, who's gonna I guess probably be their GM, he's out of California, and as soon as they start building, he'll be spending he'll be here every month, and probably a few months out of the year he'll be here. So that one also sounds good.
That makes more sense. Like I was wondering how they were floating this for this long, while all this went through, because it's
absolutely. Yeah, they applied for, the first thing they applied for was that outdoor patio, right? And there was a real hey, Melissa, that's the same place, that kerfuffle we had with that outdoor patio because of notification or not needing a notification, and the person the officer doing it did something wrong. So it was an odd thing. However, I don't think that requires a review. It does not have public comment anyway. It is just falls under, rules of operation that they'd be allowed to, to whatever they'd be allowed to do. It's under that expanded outdoor patio and outdoor dining post pandemic that they adopted for a lot of places. So it falls under there. So they expect to open sometime in first quarter, not before February, somewhere around there. I mean, it'll be relatively quick, I think. I thought it'd be quick. No kitchen. Even if they do a little band indoors, they'd probably have to lose a little bit of seating. It'll all be indoors. I also talked to them specifically about the kinds of things that Monkey Barrel ran into, which was, it's when people open and close a door, that noise came in and out, even if everything was closed at 10. And at least on the front door, what they plan on having is a bit of a vestibule and, some more obstacles, right? But they're aware. I kind of gave them all of the lessons learned from things like Monkey Barrel and other places that we've had not issues, but things come up, and they seem pretty flexible. Would ready to address anything, want to cooperate, not like I think what we went through when Monkey Barrel moved in originally, because they didn't want to get into a GNA. These guys are pretty cooperative. It looks good. The owners of the building also are very community focused. They wanted to not do housing and wanted to have businesses. They worked for Zeppelin out of Rhino and ran a BID over there. So they're really knowledgeable and local and familiar with a lot of these kinds of issues. So I feel like they're going to be a decent, partner for us. And like I said, they're both signing, they're signing the GNA and it's going on their license. I just need to look at the edits that they made to make sure nothing was removed. That would be really pertinent. That I think, the neighborhood and the neighbors are going to care about. They are going around, they are petitioning and, collecting signatures. So they're doing all the right things instead of being people who would be like, hey, I posted, I don't have to go knock on doors. They're going to. So to me, that's saying all the right things, versus, hey, if nobody notices, they don't come. We don't have to say anything. Yeah. So I feel pretty good about that. Megan, I know like you were specifically, this was an area that you were interested in. Anything that you could think of that, valuable to either share with them or, any thoughts, specifically?
Yeah, I have just a couple process questions first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if when a business attains something like a cabaret license, if they were to sell their business to someone else, they can sell the license to the next business?
I believe all of the
right?
excise and license goes with the land.
Yes.
Unless there's any problems, they can renew usually without any hearing. However, if residents have a problem, excise and license have had too many complaints, they can call a hearing during renewal. But this is why it's really important to get this at the time of licensing.
Get it
this
right.
is the time to put it on their license. Otherwise, you miss the chance. Yeah, it's the only time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you for that. I thought that's what I remembered from before. With Monkey Barrel, I had to learn a lot more about excise and license than I ever thought I would. But also with not Common Grounds Radiator across the street from us now. But another process related question is when these kinds of things come up with something like an cabaret with an outdoor space, are the neighbors that are immediately impacted? I know the business themselves kind of goes and canvasses. Does SUNY or the city do any specific outreach like within a perimeter kind of around a business, or kind of let folks know? Because I think a lot of people don't know to
they have to post.
I think a lot of people don't necessarily know to look in the windows of the buildings.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why we try to cover this here.
That's this is kind of
that's this. But look who's on here, right? As soon as that business opens and tables and chairs are outside, I can guarantee you that's when we'll get the questions about how, when. No one told me. But unfortunately, it's not a spectator sport, right? It's like you got to participate and you got to pay attention. And it's really hard. It's really hard to get the information out. And honestly, Megan, on that front, if you have ideas on how we can be better about sharing it One of the things that we do is that we post all of these in our public drive. So
Yeah.
that's all, and then we try to tell people at these meetings, that this is going on. But yeah, if you have ideas about how we can do that as easily, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm always open to that.
absolutely. I'll think about that. I wonder, yeah, I'll continue to think about a way to automate, because I know you all do this on a volunteer basis and give a ton of your time. I can understand. It's really hard to find that time. So I really appreciate that. One reason I wanted to come on is so we've loved Common Grounds across the street and have been really supportive of Radiator. Summer of 2022, they started doing private events with a lot of loud outdoor concerts without a liquor license for that. Unfortunately, a couple of weekends ago, they did that again.
Yeah,
it was about
by
5 to
that
6.
Party.
Yeah, it was like 5 to 6 hours of pretty loud music. Went over there and talked to Ian, the manager, who just unfortunately really wasn't willing to kind of talk or kind of work through it. So he did share, I'll try to quote directly, that we're applying for a cabaret license so that we can do this any day or night that we want. I think that's a kind of direct quote. I don't mean to misinterpret his intent with that, but it was definitely kind of an interesting eyebrow raiser
response.
Oh, no, that's thank you. Thanks for letting me know that. Because
so I did call the police and I did file a police report. I did call excise and license because I've learned that's really the way. So they did file a citation for Radiator for having a live event without a proper liquor license for that. So I hated to have to do that. I did go over there and just try to talk to him person to person beforehand, but that didn't result in anything. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to let you all know that
I appreciate that.
That's good feedback.
Concern for the people in the neighborhood. We completely support the business, but another kind of loud outdoor music space right there, given the homes that are so close and that we're not, our homes aren't built to withstand that sound. There's literally no room you can go, like my kitchen counters were vibrating during that whole concert. So there's no space you could go in the house.
I'm glad you made the phone calls. I'm glad you called it in. I think that's the right thing. And you're not the only one I've heard this from. Back to a couple of years ago when they were doing more of this, you probably know Molly, right? You know Molly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know her and her husband, and I got to be honest, I've talked to one of the owners. I talked to them about the fact that you need a cabaret license. Now, when they do go apply for a cabaret license, I'm going to be showing up with the same kind of GNA, and so now, having said that, does not mean that they're going to be great operators, or they could keep pushing their luck. But what the neighbors should do is exactly what you did, to make sure that they kind of understand that they are in a neighborhood. And granted, you even with a cabaret license, after 10 p.m., the noise levels are what they're supposed to be. And if they push their luck, they're just going to run into some trouble, when they go to renew. So it makes most sense for them to, be good neighbors and to kind of operate in a way that is tolerable. And what I would ask neighbors,
what kind of restrictions can you get into a cabaret license when it's first issued?
It's the same stuff. It's the 10 p.m. closing at the doors, nothing outside, no speakers. Now, having said that, the decibel level, and this is where I think there's a bit of a challenge between what the city has as a decibel level and what's even possible. I don't think there's a way you could do outdoor anything, including a bunch of loud people like me having a drink outdoor. Right now, I'm probably at a higher decibel level than what's allowed after 10 p.m. outside. I mean, that's the reality. Like, if you ever use a decibel reader and just went, you're like, you can't really have.
But Megan, I didn't walk by there later. If they 6 hours is a long time if it went from 4 to 10 p.m.
So this was a middle of the day party. I know that the Monkey Barrel did have some additional restrictions kind of put on it because of the because of how close it is to so many other homes. And that only came because of a lot of extensive organizing of neighbors. So
Well, I think this is good, because if they are applying for it, and when that license comes and Rod and I are going to see it, I think what we'll do is to make sure we organize a meeting specific to this stuff with them.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and Megan, could you drop your contact information in the chat?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I was just going to suggest
you're obviously very close to in proximity to that. And if that's the case, then we will make sure when that comes across their desk that, you know, if you haven't by chance checked the newsletter.
Yeah, this is a good heads up, to be honest with you,
Yeah,
because now I'm going to be looking for it, and I won't waste a day before I reach right out to the folks. In fact, I'm probably going to reach out to them. So one of the owners lives across the street from me. Okay, so there's that one of the partners, and the other one I know well enough to say, hey, we've already hearing stuff about this, and you're applying for a cabaret doesn't give you free reign to make all the noise you want. That's not how this works, you know? So it's going to be more about doing things, you know, that align well.
Well, it sounds like that's what he was using that response to sort of justify that. Well, we're applying for it, so it'll be this way anyway.
Oh, this was a manager, an employee who probably has no idea.
They had no idea, but made it sound like that would make it official that they were allowed to do it.
That's what I meant. He doesn't know how it works.
There was also a tinge of I don't know if like threat is too strong a word, but he was very unhappy with me in the conversation. It was definitely like, pretty soon we'll be able to do this anytime we want. Like that was kind of what it was. So I kind of just wanted to bring that up. We live in the middle of a busy corridor, which we love. We're we love all of these businesses, but also just want to be respectful of the fact that we're in a neighborhood and that there's no way for all of us to escape that sound, whether it ends at 10 p.m., whether it ends at 7 p.m. If it's a really long outdoor concert, it really impacts people's quality of life. So thank you all for listening and for taking my contact information. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate all you do.
Down as like an attendee, so I can look you up next time. I'll remember to
I will definitely reach out as soon as that license comes, like the notification comes through, and if I know they're definitely applying for it, I will try to get them to a meeting with neighbors and maybe even do it in their place, and they should just hear what people have to say. And I think, you know, it's good for them to know that people know the rules, people know how to, you know, voice their concern and where, and really what it means to them, because after a few of those things, excise and license and the, you know, public health and environment kind of get pissed off and don't want to deal with, you know, bad operators, and they're going to start making their life miserable. It's just the way it goes. I'm not saying I want that for them at all, but it'd be good for them to hear that from neighbors, from us, kind of a united, you know, front about we've done this before and this is how it went, and we want to work with you to make sure that's not what happens. So
absolutely.
I think we will do that for Radiator when the time comes. And by the way, another board member lives immediately next door too. So you know, I know the folks who are immediately around that definitely will be concerned. So
and the last thing I'll say is the gentleman from Excise and License who was working with me last week on this is actually wonderful, really helpful, and he shared that I guess maybe a year or so ago they did apply for cabaret, but they let the application expire and never paid the fees or something like that, and that there are not any active applications right now. So it may or may not be the intent of the business. It may have been something that Ian, the manager, was saying for a variety of reasons. I don't know, but I just kind of wanted to start the conversation. So
no, this is great. I didn't know
you all.
this.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't know this, and I'm going to get an answer on this like in the next couple of days from the owners. I'll let them know we have a meeting. People show up. They told us what happened. You know, what say you? What are you guys doing? So no, that's cool. I appreciate you coming in. You know, even if we didn't have this meeting, you can reach out to us anytime. Like if this
Okay.
happened the
Great.
next day, whenever it happens, just let us know, because I think this
Okay.
is valuable for us to know. And so we can deal
Yeah.
with them properly, and we go in with kind of the proper information when we go talk to them. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Um,
Do we have
is
any
there-
other new, so we have that text bundle, is that, oh, we put that at the bottom. Okay. I was gonna say that to me is a little bit of a notification too, but we can skip over, we can go to the
Yeah.
38th and Federal. I don't know that there's a heck of a lot on 38 or Federal that needs to be
well,
shared, just that,
we've already kind of talked about the BRT. So
Yep.
on Federal, particularly
Yep.
how it, and
that there's a survey and there's an advisory group meeting happening. So those things we'll share on our platforms for Federal.
yeah.
And on 38th, I don't, Melissa, do you know kind of how far they are? I mean, they did the summer August, right? They showed up at our event. I think it was a good event. They got talked to a lot of people. I'm guessing they went back. They're gonna, massage the information, and they're going to come back to it with us again at some point at the end of this year, this fall or winter rather. Is that kind of all there is so far?
That's all there is. We don't have any
Okay.
more information than you do at this point.
Okay. All right. So it's still ongoing. I guess what I'll do is I'll reach out and find out like when they're planning on coming back. My sense is going to be another survey with some, new information. This is what we're doing. How do you feel about that? That would be my guess. Will be one more survey, if that. Okay. Near
Perfect.
Northwest. Well, Melissa, you might know a little bit more about this. So my understanding on Near Northwest, so this is the issue of rezoning some of the current commercial sites on 44th and I guess doing a design overlay. Those are what they're thinking about. The last meeting that I went to was really a meeting designed for the business and the property owners. And I did go to that, and basically it was to make sure, because the folks who are actually impacted, the property owners themselves, Councilwoman Sandoval had a meeting at North High School for those groups. I think, and Rod, you were there.
Yep, I was there.
Yeah. And I didn't realize it was only for those property owners and not public, but there were, I don't know, 10, 12 of people.
Well, and
who
what
were
they
not,
did is they kind of had some general announcements at the beginning, and then they broke out into breakout groups at different tables for the different areas that were impacted by it. So there was a group of people like that were the different neighborhoods. So there was a group of people for Highlands down there, and there were a bunch of people that I know from like along the 32nd Avenue corridor, down there
because they're thinking about
Zoo.
doing this in multiple places. For
Yeah,
us,
well,
it's the 44th Avenue.
Yeah, and so not much new came out of it. It was really just to sort of show, basically it's that same map Troopty we've been looking at for a while. They had them printed out there. There wasn't really much information. And in terms of 44th Avenue, it was still the same sort of areas and properties that were highlighted.
Now, what I'm curious about, Melissa, and maybe you know this, is in terms of the property owners on 44th, what has the feedback been? Has there been opposition? I mean, because we didn't hear any of that.
There
and
wasn't
I'm not sure.
anybody from 44th property owners at that table.
But what happens is a lot of times people will go directly and have a meeting with Councilwoman Sandoval one-on-one, not necessarily show up at one of these meetings. So I was just more curious about, were there objections? Was there any issues? Like, what's the next step, I guess? Like, and what's the timing for whatever the next step is specific to 44th?
So it's not, this is being handled as a legislative rezoning. So it'll be held by Councilwoman Sandoval, and it's got two parts. One is to bring things into current code. So anything that's in former Chapter 59, evaluating a few PUDs, trying to see how much of the old code and old PUDs that we can bring into current requirements. So that's the first part. And the second part will be to rezone properties to apply the DO8. And that was that map that you saw, including areas along 44th. We
Well,
haven't
and
received,
just to be fair, they did have the chapter 59 map is there as well. I think there's only 2 in Sunnyside. Really, or is there it's somewhere between 2 and 5? I can't remember exactly. It wasn't very many in Sunnyside at all,
No.
of the chapter 59 lots.
yeah, I don't remember exactly. I may have it up here. Sunnyside has, second here.
There's a lot.
Has approximately 9.
Oh, there's that many. Oh, I didn't think there was that many.
Yeah, you've got a PUD.
Oh, I was just looking at, I think I was just looking at the colors for the chapter 59, the lots that are still under chapter 59. I may not have looked at the PUD stuff.
Yeah, you've got, it looks like 3 PUDs, and then
That sounds right.
6.
Okay, so that's where the 9 comes from. Okay, all right.
And they're mostly down on the eastern side of this neighborhood, correct?
I think one of them is the one behind Wolf's Taylor, I thought. If that's still PUD or yeah, I think it is.
4192, huh?
That
Is that the one you were thinking of?
No.
Because I've got, are you thinking 1930 West 41st?
That one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's a PUD.
Yeah, yeah. That one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, proposed district would be UMS 2X for that.
Okay. Yep, yep.
So
That's
we have yet to have some more conversations with 4190 Tejon. They're in a PUD. And then the rest I think are pretty straightforward. Just scanning.
What are we looking at for timing on all of this stuff? I mean, is it like 6 months?
You know, I don't think we're at 6 months. I think, let's see if we have, in theory, like, they've got the application written. We're still kind of talking through a few more properties. We are tentatively scheduled for a planning board info item. So just kind of letting planning board know what's going on November 6th.
Oh,
and then
okay, this would be a good one to go to.
It's just an info item. There'll be no real
oh no, but that's, you know, it'd be great to hear, like, just like, you know, planning board gets to hear some of this stuff. I find the info meetings to be pretty, you know, informative if you're not 100% familiar with all that's going on. So that's good to know. I'll probably attend that one, or listen rather, you know.
Yeah, okay. Definitely make sure it's still going on, because we are, you know, like I said, we are still in process. Just on a few other properties, we discussed 2 more today, but in theory, it'll get before council for a first reading sometime in December, and due to calendars and the like, probably, you know, not to council for final reading and vote till possibly even February.
Okay.
So,
well, what are you guys calling this? Is there a title for this whole text amendment legislation? Are you guys calling this a, you know, DO8? What do you guys, or is it like a bunch of different things? It's
literally going to be the Near Northwest Plan implementation.
Okay, wonderful.
Rezoning, which you see with a couple of the other area plans, similar things where the council member will sponsor various legislative rezonings to deal with certain aspects of that plan recommendation.
Wonderful, thank you. That sounds great. Looking forward to some of those things for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, we are very excited about some of that. We look forward to getting that passed, kind of cleaned up a little bit. But yes, we haven't had any significant opposition as of yet. It's not to say that we won't.
Right.
But especially in Sunnyside, not that I'm aware of. That said, once this is finalized and goes out and people start receiving those fun little postcards that says you will be rezoned, or an area near you will be rezoned, then we start to
when does that go out? Like how it would be a month before planning board, at least?
No, I think it's 15 days.
Only 15. Okay, but it's usually lined up with ahead of the planning board, not the info session, but ahead of the planning board.
I believe that there's 2 notifications on that, but yes.
Okay.
You have planning board notification, and then you have council. So
Okay, all right. I mean, obviously they should already know because they got notification about this meeting where this stuff was being discussed. So, there is a lot of opportunity, but then I know there's the official, postcard notifications about the hearings themselves. Okay, so I'm just trying to think about the timing on when people will start, calling Councilwoman Sandoval's office specifically about this. Okay, that sounds good.
Could I just ask a quick question, just since I'm not as
Please.
familiar maybe with zoning law? Does zoning for a property affect your property taxes?
no.
No.
Okay.
What's
And
built
then
on there does.
right.
Well, yeah, so
And
it's all by use. So like,
yeah,
just because you're entitled to do something else, it would be, yeah, like, so like, for
Yeah.
example,
It might affect the value, meaning if you had more entitlement than it's currently being used, the next person who wants to buy it,
right,
at that
would pay
point,
you
the value
more,
of that
would,
property, but
yeah,
not your
would,
taxes. Yeah.
but I don't think they can utilize that potential value to assess
No, no.
taxes on you.
okay.
Nope.
And then I apologize for my ignorance on this, but I am one of the property owners on 44th, and our zoning, you said it was a code that had an 8 in it. Does that mean 8 stories can be built
No,
on
no,
44th?
no,
Or
no, 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 no,
could
no,
you?
no, no.
Okay,
No.
great. What is the zoning going to be switched to for our 44th corridor?
It's
And it's
not the
only
entire
specific
corridor.
properties. Yeah,
It's
it's
only
only
for,
properties.
so if you, the best way, if you haven't seen the map, it's basically the current commercial properties that are along there that,
Yeah.
so there's, and east of Zuni, they've got,
Mhm.
it's currently they're, 2 stories, and they can be under the COA, it'll be
Yeah.
allowed to go 3 stories on those properties.
Right.
On the
Um,
west
Okay.
side of Zuni is already 3.
is
So this kind
already
of
3,
corrects.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so it's already there. But what it does is it will mandate that the streets front must have commercial use at the ground level. So, because currently right now, what they
Great.
could do is scrape those businesses out of there and build, single fam or, multifamily developments like that happened
Yeah.
at the corner
Yeah.
of Zuni and,
Yeah.
and that's what I think is the intent, is to try to not lose more of our
Yeah.
businesses along the corridor, but it won't change anything else.
Great. Thank you for the background there. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the question.
Yep. All right.
So we
So-
already did the
So we
excise and
already kind of
license.
did, I was kind of moving some stuff around here while you
And
were
that's fine.
talking, Troop D.
That's fine.
and
So we
we've
already
kinda-
did the ADUs. It's only the carriage lots, right? That's left as far as the text amendment piece with the carriage lots. Because I know folks from Sloan's Lake, because this is all of District 1, I think, that we're talking about with these carriage lots, at least from Councilwoman Sandoval's side. And I know folks from Sloan's Lake, there's a few more there, and folks have got together to say, we don't want you to do this. We want you to hold off. Yeah, there wasn't enough community input. And, frankly, sometimes they try to get us into, pull us
Right, because
into
like I said,
their
I
fights.
think there's only 2 in Sunnyside
There
carriage
are only
lots.
2, but I'm
And-
trying to figure out where did they end up with all of this stuff? I was at the last meeting. I don't know, is it still just moving forward? Is it already going to be a planning board like next week or this week, or it's happening soon?
Planning board was today. I will have to watch the video. So
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
I have not seen it yet. I was not in office for that. So I will, I am as ignorant on that as you are right now.
I'm going to watch it too if it's up there. If it's up there, is it up there already? Because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get up there.
Yeah, usually it takes them a day or 2.
Okay, yeah.
Especially if it was a long planning board, which I suspect it probably was.
Right. Yeah. I'm curious about where they landed and the folks who showed up. I'm sure that the folks from Sloan's Lake were there in objection.
Yeah, and the reality is no different than you heard at the meeting a couple weeks ago. This, although seemingly a large change to some people, is really not a large change. This is being put forth by the city. This is not being put forth by our office, but ultimately it is not a change in density. They are proposing to allow the same structure that can be built today to be a primary use structure instead of a accessory use structure. So right now you can build an accessory use dwelling unit, so an ADU, on these if you are a property owner of the surrounding block. They are proposing to allow those to be single family homes, so primary use structures, but no larger than an ADU. So the exact same home that can be built today, the exact same height, the exact same footprint that you can build today would be the same thing that could be built under this, only it would be a single family home, not an accessory dwelling unit.
So
the
biggest question there, the change, then I brought this up and nobody seemed to have an answer, was utilities.
So that's not part of this. And that's really where people are getting really caught up. No different than any other development. That becomes, we are zoning, and then the problems on how to get utilities there, how to make fire happy, alley access, all of that. That is the problem for the property owner when they want to develop it. That is a problem for a different day.
Okay.
And it could make it so that some of these are either financially infeasible to develop, or you know, just incredibly challenging and costly to develop. You know, whether it's going to be having to relocate a fire hydrant, or making it so they have to put extra setbacks to ensure the existing access to existing garages is maintained. All of that will have to be accommodated through that development services review process, which you're aware of, Rod. But
yeah,
you know,
well, because like currently, if it's an ADU, like that, the utilities are generally, in most cases, fed from the already existing utility connections, meaning sewer, water, gas, electric. And so if it were a separate, independent, separate lot, it would have to have all new connections that could not be come through the adjoining parcels. So that will be a challenge for some of them, I think.
So the questions, I have a couple of questions. One, I want to understand the history of how we ended up here, because it seems like I would have assumed every carriage lot was owned by the house where it looks like the carriage lot's associated with.
No,
now,
they were literally carriage lots, so everybody had access to it that was around there.
Well, no, so that's so I kind of want to understand like how it went around. Like, did the city at some point sell these off? Who sold them off to whom? And because there's all these issues of people. I mean, one of the things that I learned or I was hearing that I was like, I need to go understand this. I guess it was Tina Axelrod talking about this. But the fact that there are people who owned it, did stuff to it, didn't realize they couldn't do anything to it, and the city was like, we don't know how to handle this or where it falls in terms of who has
I think there's probably as many answers.
Property.
There's probably as many different answers there as there are carriage lots in the city, because
so
everyone
I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
So Melissa, if you have like background on like how these carriage lots came to be, and that's one. That's the history. I wasn't really sure of. But I have a second question, might be faster, which is an ADU, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, an ADU would be smaller than the primary residence, right? It can't be it has to be.
That's what
tall?
Typically speaking, Trupti, it could be, but what Melissa is saying is the primary residence thing could not be larger than an ADU on these carriage lots.
Correct. So you would be limited to building 864 square foot per level.
Yeah.
That's assuming you didn't want a garage.
Right.
For this primary structure. This would have its special rules. It would not be allowed to have its own ADU. It would be limited to the size of an ADU, but it would be a primary dwelling unit.
But are there any height restrictions on ADUs today?
2 stories, yes.
Okay, so 2 stories.
Depending on your context.
Okay. So yeah, all right, that makes sense. So that's the easier question.
It's essentially an ADU in form, but
exactly.
It could be sold off as a single
it could be
family
sold
home.
off as a separate. And to answer your question about how we got here, every
Yes.
city block here had a carriage lot originally during the first platting, and they have been like absorbed and unified into other surrounding parcels. So for example, my lot is 187 feet deep, and so is my joining lot. Now we run, Megan, you don't know where I'm at, 42nd and Clay, but we live in the middle of the block that runs north-south. At some point, our lot was only the 125 foot deep, and they added that 50 feet of, they divided our carriage lot up into 4 pieces that were unified with the 4 adjoining properties. So, you know, when we bought the house, it was part of our property's 50 foot wide by 187 deep. So they, somewhere along the way, somebody decided to replat this block and get rid of the
So in that way, like all of them, there's all like varying things.
Yeah, some
in
come
terms
in,
of how
and
it
it
was
depends
handled.
which way the alley runs and how it runs as to which way it was like attached.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
there's some funky ones too that
Oh, yeah.
create these weird L-shaped things,
Right.
you know,
That I was familiar with as well.
that
Yeah,
the
because I
city
was really
doesn't
trying
like
to.
either, and is trying to figure out a way they can clean those up because there's these weird jogs in all the property lines.
Right. Yeah. Because so there's
So-
only 2 in Sunnyside, and I'm not even, and maybe Melissa, you know, whether those 2 folks have like either reached out to Councilwoman's office that they're aware this is even happening. And I'm just curious because I don't know how big those lots are. I have no idea what you can build on them. You know, with only like what 36 in the whole city, I wish the city would have done a slightly different job, a better job of communicating things that are happening. Because I also think like the Sloan's Lake people may be upset about something that's not even possible. You know what I mean? And I wonder
Let me give you context on that. The Sloan's Lake people are very, very angry because they missed out on the opportunity to buy that lot. That lot sold for $6,000 several years ago, and then they missed buying it by days. They put in an offer like 3 or 4 days after the current owner had put in his offer, and they were the backup offer.
And this was sold by the city? Was this sold by the city?
The original $6,000 sale was by the city. So a lot of the ones that were sold by the city owned them, sold them for low prices long ago. Now, I don't believe the city owns any of them. They're all individually owned.
So there's this one that was owned by the city and went for $6,000, and the group of people were upset because they didn't have an opportunity.
$6,000 15 years ago. I can't remember.
Oh,
it was a while.
Okay.
This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then that person turned around and tried to sell it to the residents for a higher price, and they balked and were like, if you can't build on it, you're going to have to drop that price and eventually sell it to us. And that didn't happen. And when one of the residents eventually tried to buy it, they were too late. The current owner purchased it.
Okay.
So non-buyer's remorse. Non-buyer's remorse.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly. They are incredibly angry and disappointed.
Okay.
Some of the neighbors had dreams of turning it into a community space, which they do some great ones. There's one over by Congress Park that I just adore, that they share it among the block. I think Google Maps had it marked as a pocket park for a while, and it's very
that's cool.
That private.
Yeah,
park.
no, I can imagine somebody wanting to do something like that. But is it one piece of land and a bunch of neighbors around it all upset about this one, or is it a group of people and there's like a group of carriage lots that they're upset about?
No. We're talking one carriage lot.
Oh, geez.
With very, 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 very vocal residents.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you. Because like I said, I think folks are trying to rope us into that fight. And I'm just like, I don't know if I get what this fight is about quite yet, but no, in Sunnyside, we have 2 and I'm not hearing any problems. So I'm out.
Yeah. Well, and the one over here near me, quite frankly, for 20 years was, I think, more of a nuisance for the neighbors than even if you developed it, because it was an empty lot that a construction company parked all of their equipment and trucks on, and at 5 o'clock in the morning they'd fire up all their dump trucks and stuff. And it went on for, and they had the right to do, I don't know, maybe there's a noise ordinance, but they just kept doing it, and they really, they didn't develop it at all, and that was a more of a nuisance, I would think. 5 o'clock in the morning, like 6 dump trucks firing up in the morning to warm up. So anyway,
Okay. All right. Thank you
That's
very much
actually
for
happening.
humoring me on this carriage lot. And we have 15 minutes left, and I think we have to talk about that Phillips property
Yep.
because I'm
Yep.
trying to figure out what we do here because it does look a little dangerous.
So let me just make one quick announcement. The last little thing here in the underneath the updates, we are talking about going back to second Thursdays for the land use committee meeting because of conflicts with other stuff that everybody has on, and also to accommodate you, Melissa. So
Thank you.
yeah. So
Well, no,
I just wanted to-
absolutely. You're one of you're someone who shows up. We got to accommodate the
yeah,
people
we
who
got to
show
bring you in.
up.
So we are talking about going back to our previously scheduled days. I don't know when that will initiate, if we're going to do that for the November one or
But you know what? I'm thinking we might just go into January for that, and
yeah.
gives us time to really rethink whether we want to start doing them in person,
Okay.
and at least trying them in person for a few months to see if that changes kind of our participation. And honestly, at this point, like I don't care if we decide Saturday morning, no, except Melissa, we have to get a recording or something. But yeah, I'm willing to try anything to try to figure out how to accommodate people and
the
whether
other
we don't
and the other conflicting meetings that happened in the neighborhood, so
exactly.
those are the
No,
things. So,
thank you for that. And actually, before we even jump onto the very last thing, I should just give a quick recap of the 918 because Megan,
yeah,
I
because
think you were
I think
there
that's really
for
why
that one.
Megan's on here too, is one of the topics that Megan wanted to
Well,
hear about.
I can read, more of that.
Well,
I wanted
well,
to just check in
I'll
about
give
the
you-
RNOs, but
Yeah, no, the
yeah.
GNAs. Yeah, I figured that was important
GNAs,
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so we had this meeting on the 18th. That was our standard land use meeting, and I invited because I started getting calls from people, and I'm pretty sure Councilwoman is getting calls too at this point because news about the city doing something got ahead of the city having an opportunity to communicate that with us, right? So there was a lot of people saying what's happening. So I invited the city and Councilwoman Sandoval. They both agreed to show up. We had like 50, 60 people there, and there's a lot of people upset about it. But what the city shared was, they were thinking about making this a migrant shelter for a cap of 100 people. It would only be needed if certain metrics were in place. Basically, if more than 50 people showed up 2 days in a row, basically they weren't sure whether they would need to use it. They just wanted to be ready if all of a sudden Texas started busing people here again, right? But we've had no buses since June. And the numbers are very low, but they didn't want to be in the situation where we would have to go pay for hotel rooms, then end up with encampments. They wanted to have a property where there would be a place like an intake, and it would only be for 24 hours, meaning they get off the bus, they have a place to rest their head, use the restrooms. Next morning, case managers are talking to them about, okay, where are you going next? Who do you know? How can we help you? If they had nothing and no one, they would be going into our services available to our unhoused. But all of that sounded really good to me. I was less worried about anything after talking to them. However, since then, now there's a meeting on the 29th of this month at Remington, and the language is a little different. And I think there are some changes, and I don't know what those are. So my original thought was I was going to put out meeting notes from this, but now knowing that the city is coming back and actually doing the proper notification, I'm going to wait to hear what they say before I share something more broadly in writing that this is what we're hearing. But that's kind of where we were, and we have a meeting coming up. I hope you come. Hope you tell folks about it. Like I said, I think having more information and having transparency made me more comfortable in general. And a lot of people who show up at the meeting, they kind of conflate the issues of our homeless to the issues of migrants, and the issues are different, right? So, but people think about, well, the people, the addicts, the needles. It's like, well, that's not necessarily the issues that the migrants are having, and this would not be a place for the unhoused and the shelter, and this would not be a walk-up site. You can't just show up. It would be security and staffed, and it's only activated if they need it.
So what happens to the space? So if they don't,
it goes empty. It goes empty, and they
just
paid for it
stays-
anyway.
So we just have an empty building there that's
Well,
not
no,
being
well, no.
utilized at all.
Hold on, no. DPS is still going to use part of that building for their back end office stuff. No students, but half of it, or
Oh,
more than
okay.
half
So
of it, is still going to be DPS. The city was planning on leasing out gym, cafeteria, and a set of bathrooms and some storage and an office for the staff.
so there will be
right?
some activities going on over there.
Even without even, but
Okay.
the activation of the shelter is only if
Okay. Well,
they
I just,
needed the space.
when you were saying like the only if kind of thing, and then it's like if the whole thing is just idle and without activation, things tend to fall, into sketchiness. And so there needs to be something going on over there.
Right. So that's what they said. Now, like we'll see if any information changes, because now there's a bit of a change where they may only be able to have 20 people there at it. And again, this is where I don't know the rest of the facts of this. So we're going to wait till the 29th. So that's that. Please go to the meeting. I think it'll be very informative, and more information and knowledge is better than less. So I think you'll be more comfortable knowing what they're doing than just rumor. But let's get to Phillips, because I think we got to act on
Okay,
this.
yeah, well, we can wrap up. I mean, I don't have a ton to talk about, but I'll just give a brief history here of what kind of happened. I go by there every day on my walks, and it's been pretty close to 4 months now, I think, since they dug that hole. And it is set idle, and there has been no activity for about 4 months now. And I just happened to notice a couple of weeks ago that, well, it was maybe a little more longer than that. We had a big rainstorm, and I had gone by and noticed that actually we're getting some earth subsiding through the temporary shoring caissons. And
It's
now
looking
what
pretty
has
bad on the
happened,
sidewalk side. I mean, I was just there yesterday, day before, and it's getting worse.
yeah, and on the property to the south, which I can't believe those people aren't furious because their yard has started to settle a little bit. It doesn't look like it's started to settle under their front porch, but I'm not saying that it hasn't started a little. It's just they can't notice it. But you can tell the people on with the Phillips 66 know about it, because they've now screwed a couple pieces of OSB plywood to the side of the temporary shoring caissons,
on the side where the house is.
Yeah, on the south side of the property, because they were trying to keep those people's grass from washing into the hole. And
I reached out to the property owner.
As a builder and an architect, those temporary shoring caissons are not intended to be long-term solutions. The plywood certainly isn't. By making that a retaining wall, not a temporary shoring thing, those caissons are not designed for those types of improvements to be made to them by screwing on sheathing and stuff like that. So I'm beginning to get worried as that thing continues to deteriorate. You can even tell, the initial plan that they came with us for was to save the old buildings that were on there.
That might fall in.
And that has started to, it is really close to settling. And I know that it's so I'm worried what'll happen is that, and plus they've just piled all the dirt on the site, and in the building that was the garage, they actually just pushed dirt into the garage building. So that's part of their dirt that came out of the hole. And so long story short, I sent a 311, and you can only post one picture on there, which you were right, Trippy. You can only put one picture. I did not hear back from them for like a week or so. So I actually contacted Melissa, sent her multiple pictures of what was going on, and then she reached out and to developmental services. And in the meantime, I did receive a response from Right of Way.
Yeah, that was confusing to me with the right of way aspect.
Well, because the dirt is sloughing into the sidewalk and pushing the silt fence and the temporary fencing out into the sidewalk. And they said, we are taking care of this, was the response. But I just went by this afternoon, and it doesn't look like anybody's done anything. So
I guess the question is, Melissa, were you able to, were you able to contact anybody? What do we do? Do we get like 12 people to, I think an inspector needs to come out, and maybe they have. How do we find out whether somebody has looked at it and they are addressing it? I guess that's all I want to know is city knows and cities on it.
I want to be clear, I did try and bring it to their attention, but the city will not, anytime you have that private property line, the city's not going to intervene. So, you know, they can go and they can have a conversation with that developer if they so choose to say, hey, that's not looking so good. But
Until
unfortunately,
when
any kind of
the neighbor's
Yeah.
porch falls in and gets undermined? Like
Yeah, I
when?
mean,
so
like,
you actually, there is some precedent to that. If you look, you know, there's some articles from like 10 years ago, similar thing, you know, maybe not similar, but a development was going into next to a home in Five Points, and the entire side of the house.
Oh yeah. But and that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
really triggered they won't even issue your building permit until after the temp shoring has been inspected. And so now that's why every property has to have the temp shoring caissons in place before the excavation permit can commence. But so you're saying that there really is no pathway there because they did do temp shoring, even though it's not going to sustain it forever. My biggest concern is sort of it's mosquito breeding ground. It's full of mosquito larvae and it's been breeding mosquitoes. You can see them in the water, even from the sidewalk, and it's almost a health department issue at this point. Was like my
so
concern.
maybe call the health department. I mean,
So
would that be
it
the
has
thing?
been reported to the health department.
Okay.
What they've done about it, I'm
Yeah.
unclear.
So my
Okay,
other
okay.
thing was
Something
is
I
like,
think
I mean,
are
the
in,
fence
but
seems pretty secure and there's not any gaps that I could see. But you know, somebody's pet falls in there or a kid, you know, like there's today I did notice the water level was a tad lower. It's only about 2 foot deep. So, you know, hopefully somebody wouldn't drown in it. But, you know, it was several feet higher before. It was more than 4 feet deep at one point.
And we're gonna probably get rain and snow, you know, coming up. That's the weather. I
Well,
guess,
this
you know,
weekend, yeah, we're supposed to
yeah.
be getting rain.
I'm
So
I reached out to the property owner and he did not call, you know, return my call. I talked to the guy across the street who has a relationship with him. And I was like, Chris, can you, you know, are you not worried? What's going on here? And he reached out to him. And then Chris says to me, he's going to reach out to you. This is like 3 weeks ago. Still haven't heard from him. I'm just trying to figure out, you know, who do we call? And can anything be done? Or we just wait till things fall in, you know? And at
it
this
is
point,
going
like
to deteriorate. Like my guess is one of two things happened. One is that they did not detect the water table. The water that's in there is groundwater. It's not runoff
that part
water.
is true. That is what
They
happened.
they did not detect that during their soils testing, and it probably changes the ability to put a basement down there, at least, you know,
Correct.
which was a large part of their business model. The other thing is maybe they drilled the soils tests in areas that did not capture all the squeegee gravel that is in there, which is probably was backfilled in when they removed the fuel tanks from there. Because I had a property over on a Lottie where that was done years past, and that's why there's all that gravel you see in the hole that's not native soil, is because I'm guessing there were fuel tanks removed at some point in the past, and it's all backfill. And that can
Yeah,
be
they were removed actually by the previous owner. I'm
right.
pretty sure.
But that gravel can be very localized, meaning if they drilled the hole 2 feet over from where the tanks were, they probably didn't hit the gravel for the soils testing. And so you know, and they may not have realized that all that gravel was in there and it's just not the right substrate for what they want to put in. You know, so there could be a couple of reasons why things have come to a grinding halt. You know, but
yeah, you know what though? I don't
no
care about
reasonable
any of that.
builder would
Right.
ever want to leave something open for that long,
Correct.
you know, on their own accord. It's something has caused that to happen, and you know,
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like the city can't do anything, right, Melissa? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out like who do I call? What do I, you know, what can the community do? You know, about complaining about a big hole in the ground with soil that's subsiding, and you know, I think one of the reasons that the we were for what he was doing was because he was going to keep some of the existing buildings, which now sounds like, well, I guess he's just going to wait for that stuff to all fall in and he can just start from scratch. I'm just trying to figure out, is there any recourse for the community of a potentially dangerous situation? That's
the
all.
reality is they have, you know, even by Rod's words, they have a stable fence, right? So thankfully, the chances of someone just stumbling into this pit is hopefully
Right.
yeah,
low.
it is minimized by that. Yeah.
not impossible, but certainly lower. That said, I did try and go at it in no different than what you've encountered. Right away will address right away concerns.
Right.
It's that shoring with the neighbor that is something that's harder to address. And I'll certainly flag it for the councilwoman. That said,
so and I know there's probably privacy laws you're not allowed to talk about. Have the neighbors to the south reached out? Have you heard anything from any? Because if it were
I'm about
me,
to knock on their door.
If it were me, I would have a lawyer calling the property owner, because there is a big chance of their, because that does not, those do not have full basements, those houses, and they are on sort of frost depth foundations. So their foundations are significantly higher than the excavation hole, which makes it more susceptible to subsidence.
I'm probably going to go knock on those folks' door. I just haven't had time, been busy. But
I'm shocked. I mean, they paid like $1 million for that.
I'm assuming they must have also made some calls.
Yeah.
And if they're running into,
you would think somebody that paid $1 million for a house and then have that hole next to you for 4 months I would be shocked that you wouldn't call.
So
they may have called, to be clear, they may have called about the water and being a mosquito trap or something like that. I know that, Gina and Alessandra handled those types of complaints, and I knew that we've received some, whether it was from other people or not, I don't know. But as far as the shoring, I do not believe we received any complaints about that other than from Rod.
So last little tidbit, I know we're over time. When I was walking by Monday, there was a gentleman out front taking photographs, and I thought it was somebody from the city. So I walked up to him. It turns out he's a reporter that does commercial stories on commercial properties and development. And his name's Matt, and he lives over at 41st and Knox Court, right near Skinner. And he writes for, I didn't get his card, and I gave him my number to call me so we could talk about it. And I thought it might be an avenue we pursue, because he writes for some publication thing, but he said oftentimes his articles get picked up by the Denver Post and stuff. So like, he's kind of a freelance guy that writes on commercial development and everything. And he was taking photographs. And so we chatted. And so he was supposed to text me or call me today, and he didn't. So I'm hoping he does reach out. So,
keep me updated on that.
I'll get his name and number and contact and see what I said. Don't quote me or list my name in anything, please. But I kind of gave him my 2 scoops, and we talked about, you can see now it's been there long enough that like actually weeds are growing on the side of the hole.
Actually, the tree of heaven is growing out. But so what I noticed is that the dirt that's subsiding in between the temporary shoring, most of it is coming from under the sidewalk. So there, yes. That's the picture I took.
And it will, and it'll continue. And because you've released that lateral pressure, soil will eventually migrate that way, whether we get rain or not. It's just, that's how gravity works. It's pushing down. And since there's no pushback anymore, it'll work between those 3-foot gaps and eventually work its way out.
Like, would right of way not be concerned with a situation that would make the entire sidewalk in that section, kind of fall in, versus like, oh wait, there's dirt going on.
Well, maybe not, because they know they're getting a new sidewalk anyway with that development. So they may not be as concerned.
As long as it is open to the public, which it currently is, at least last time I went by.
Yes, if it subsided and became a hazard, they'd be concerned, but we may have a long time.
All right. So you know what? I did not put it in a 311, but I've been watching it, and I've been watching how much dirt has been moving in between those temporary caissons.
Yeah.
And it's the ones that, and I'm like, oh boy, there's less dirt now in between them.
Yeah.
And it's, it's starting to become hollow between them, among about 2 or 3 of the different caissons.
Yep.
So the shoring. So I was planning on, doing the same thing, saying, hey, this doesn't look safe for the pedestrians.
I will look again tomorrow, Trupti, and take pictures from that angle, because I didn't really get any looking back under the sidewalk there, and see if I can get around.
I'll send you the one I have.
I just was shocked if they knew they were going to be tied up and for any length of time. It would be $500 for that guy to push that dirt back in the hole, at least 90%. And they wouldn't even have to push all of it. because
Right.
and then to dig it back out when you get going again isn't that much because it's all loosened up already. It's just like, why not just, I couldn't figure out, like if it were me and I was a builder and came to a dead end because of some other condition, I would
Fill
have
the
just
hole.
filled it back in for a little bit because it's not that big of a deal to dig it back out. And, you know,
And not only that, he's going to be that property is going to be one of the ones that can go up 3 stories now.
right.
So, you know, I mean, granted, he wanted to put a gym-like thing in the basement. You wouldn't want to put the gym above a restaurant and people bouncing around. However, he can go 3 stories.
Well,
So he could have,
my thinking is they're like, perhaps their new plan is, well, we're just going to tear down the other 2 buildings and build the full lot out, you know, like that they couldn't get what they wanted. You know, and we're making a lot of guesses here.
no, yeah, I'm not even, all I know is like, put the dirt back in if that's all you can do until you figure out what the plan is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad somebody else is also looking at this, you know, the reporter
I'm
person,
just,
you know,
you know,
I'll send you the picture I
I'm
have.
normally pretty much like forgiving and, you know, it's like, yeah, I know you guys are struggling with it. Do what you got to do. But this has been 4 months. I mean, it's going on.
Exactly. Put the
And we're
dirt
going
back
into the
in.
worst part of the winter where it's really going to be a
Correct.
problem.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
We don't want to take up any more.
All right. Well, Melissa,
time.
thanks
I'm
for
sure
hanging
you had
on.
a full day.
No problem. I'll definitely let the councilwoman know that this is continuing to be an issue. I'm just looking through their permits. They did pull permits for sewer and use. They have the, if you look online, you can see some of these permits that were pulled and their explanation for it. But yeah, this stuff was pulled back in May, but the last permit was pulled in June. And considering it's October, that's a pretty long time between permit pulls for something like this.
Right. Eventually the permit will,
correct.
It's about, you know, if they get past a year, you'll have to renew the permit.
Melissa, I have your cell. I'm going to send you the picture I just sent to Rod about all the dirt that's coming out. And again, I'm not a builder, but somebody smarter than me needs to look at this. All I can say is that doesn't look good.
That's fair. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
no, that's exactly right, Troopy. That's exactly right. Like they just completely subsided between those 2 and underneath the sidewalk as well.
Right. And that's the one I'm like.
And that's what was happening on the south side, but they screwed those 2 pieces of plywood up there to sort of hold it. But oh, well, you guys know chipboard OSB. It doesn't hold up in the weather, so that's not going to hold up for Jack. And, you know, but also it's not engineered for doing that.
Correct. But this section is the only section that looks this bad, and it's on the side where the street
does look
is.
bad. But you can also notice that you're starting to get settlement near the old little teeny building. Yep. You can look over there and you can see. I was trying to look and see if I could see cracking in the brick because that's where you'd start to see that, you know, in the mortar if there was any subsidence. I didn't notice any, but I'll keep my eye on it.
I'm just hoping that this thing gets some attention and some pressure on.
Just push the dirt. Just make them push the dirt back in, and then
some pressure on the property owner to just figure out what he needs to do temporarily so it doesn't get any worse for the surrounding properties. And I will knock on the door.
And it's in his own best interest. It's in his own best interest, to be frank, because eventually it will become a lawsuit from the adjoining neighbor if their property is anyway damaged by the subsidence.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's all fine and well, but who wants to deal with all that, right? I mean, it's better to prevent that than to.
That's what I'm saying. It's in his best interest not to even, because now at this point, I think if they have any problem with their house, he's already put himself open to exposure. Like, because then it becomes an argument of like, is it really caused by that? Or is it just that the builder that built our house didn't do a proper foundation? You know, you get houses that settle all the time. Like,
no, of course.
You know, now anything happens to their house, they could just blame him, you know?
Right. Well, you know, I don't want to even speculate, and we've gone over, but Melissa, if you can escalate that and let us know if there's anything us as residents or, you know, we could do to escalate this. Just let us know what that is. I mean, I just want it resolved. So don't really, you know. want any drama.
One final quick question. When you go to 311, does that include kind of distributing issues out to the health department too, or no? Are they not part of the 311 kind of umbrella?
You can report health department issues to 311.
I think it's a matter of what you say, right? Like, hey, this is
Well,
a health
I did
issue,
mention
or,
the mosquitoes in my thing, but maybe they glossed over that part and just sent it to right away or something, because that's where the response came from. So, maybe I put another one in there to the health department and directly.
Okay, so
mention
maybe-
Always do these in like separate batches.
Oh, good to
311
know.
doesn't do a great job necessarily of getting it to multiple departments.
Oh,
They hear your
interesting.
complaint, they pick out what they need to and send it to a department. So if you need
so
multiple
if I
departments,
reword my complaint more addressing the water and the mosquitoes, it might get and mention the health department in there.
If
Okay.
we have the case number for the 311 that
I have
Rod
it.
had, Melissa, are you able to look to see who all got that information from that particular 311 call? I mean, I know it might require some time to research and get answers.
So
but
this
is that even a thing?
this is what I got back from them.
Guys, I'm going to actually stop recording this, if that's
Okay.
okay.